Holy fuck!
I grew up watching Family Guy, and honestly, it probably saved my life. Back in my early middle school days, I was obese, lonely, and my family wasn't in the greatest economic situation, only really being able to afford cable TV and books on my birthday. I remember grinding out homework late at night while Adult Swim played in the background. Shows like Aqua Teen Hunger Force, Rick and Morty, and Family Guy had that fast-paced, dark, mindless humor that was like music to my prepubescent ears. Even in the worst of days, I always had something to look forward to coming home from school. And honestly, I never really stopped watching Family Guy. It was an important part of my life at that point, and as cringe as that is, it did feel weird that all my friends and most people online talked about the show in such a negative way. They treated the show like it was a cardinal sin. Sure, the writing is lazy, sure, cutaways and cheap gags get old, and sure, the horse they've been beating is probably a red stain by now, but for some reason it remained as a guilty pleasure of mine. Something I could hide away in, turn my brain off, and just exist. And it's no surprise that online ironic meme culture adopted Family Guy into its cult, either warping it far past its original dark humor,
But somebody told me this is a really good way to start your diet.
or taking the darkest or most out-of-pocket moments out of context.
I am so fucking ready.
This led to a huge resurgence in Family Guy media online, something that Seth MacFarlane has realized and capitalized on, with much more nonsense being packed into each episode.
And we don't know how to end these shows anymore, so we just do nonsense.
Leading the show to get memed on and made even more fun of, something that I've personally been enjoying. The writing for Family Guy is pretty consistent. Episodes usually consist of a character having a problem or a goal. Depending on the character, their actions to solve this problem or achieve this goal will become increasingly nonsensical until the problem either resolves itself or the goal is achieved. This formula follows the regular Freytag's pyramid of storytelling, with an exposition, a problem, rising action, climax, falling action, and resolution. Like with the season 15 episode Gronkowski's. Gronk moves in next door. At first, the gang is pretty psyched because now they live next to the star player of the Patriots. Eventually, his party lifestyle gets to be too much, a bus is thrown, and brute force does not solve the problem. Well, Stewie's B story of beekeeping ends up converging with the A plot and resolving it. Pretty standard, right? A simple episode with an easy to digest plot. Well, not as often. The episodes will consist of multiple climaxes, much like a choose your own adventure story. Just as one problem is solved, the characters begin to chase a new thread. A prime example of this is in the season 8 episode Splendid Source. The episode starts off with Chris being suspended from school by telling a dirty joke he heard from Quagmire. Peter finds Quagmire, and instead of telling him off, he asks to hear the joke. Quagmire tells it, and Peter laughs so hard that he shits himself. And when the punchline is repeated, Peter has the same reaction. This leads to Joe and Quagmire harassing Peter in increasingly absurd ways. Already, we have the introduction of a problem, the joke, and a rising action, Quagmire and Joe's harassment. Well, the climax occurs when Peter calls Quagmire's bluff, coming to the bar wearing Quagmire's pants, finally diffusing the situation. The falling action of that story then bleeds into the exposition of the next thread followed. When Peter asks where Quagmire heard the joke,
No, I gotta admit, Quagmire, despite all the problems, that joke is freaking hilarious. Where'd you hear it?
this kickstarts a new story arc in the same episode. The goal now being to figure out who came up with the joke. And after a journey to Washington, D.C., multiple twists, and a high-octane chase scene, the gang discover a massive conspiracy that the greatest geniuses in the world, under the secret order of dirty jokes, formulate, write, and find inconspicuous ways to disperse them where they're most needed in society. The gang is in prison because now they know the secret behind dirty jokes, the gang escapes, and the episode ends with Peter telling the full joke that made him shit himself. This use of a smaller, less important story with its own intro, rising action, and climax to set into motion a completely different, more complex plot always amazed me. Even if some of the episodes are majorly uninspired or just generally uninteresting, the writers could theoretically come up with a crazy amount of episode ideas from this unique way of writing. And this got me thinking, could I write a Family Guy episode? Could anyone write a Family Guy episode? And so I wanted to try my hand at it to prove a point for my argument. Well, most episodes start with either A, the living room, or B, the clam. Let's choose option A to start. So Peter is sitting in the living room. Lois screams and comes down the stairs visibly angry, telling Peter that she knows it was him who flooded the bathroom, and completely sick of him for the time being, she asks him to go do something with his life. Peter, visibly upset, goes to the clam and is sat down with the guys. And as they go to pay, somebody steals Peter's wallet from his hand. One of two things could happen. A, they chase the thief down and corner him, revealing that it's someone they know, changing the direction of the story. Or B, they lose him. Let's pick choice B. Sad that he's lost his wallet, Peter and the gang try multiple knuckle-brained plans to try and catch the robber, setting up traps, and eventually ending up roaming the streets at night to try and catch the thief. During one of their patrols, Joe falls down an open maintenance hole, getting swept away by the rushing water of the sewer. The guys jump down and chase after him, but he's going too fast. They can't reach him in time. He ends up inches away from the end of the sewer, barely grasping on for dear life. At the end of the sewer is a massive drop, high enough to kill a person. And as his grip begins to slip, one of two things could happen. A, the guys catch up with him. This would spark a storyline where Joe becomes a thrill seeker, only being saved at the last minute each time. Eventually, the group would talk some sense into him, ending on an emotional note. Or B, Joe falls. Let's pick option B. Joe falls screaming, and in a panic, the guys find a way to get to him. Once they get down, they find Joe a little worse for wear, but not too bad, because of course, he landed on his legs. While down in this clearing, they find a patch of disturbed dirt and try to clear it away, finding an old dusty trunk. Upon opening it, they find tons of historical relics like coins. And looking at it, they're probably worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. Two things could happen here. A, the guys get greedy and distrustful of each other, and the episode ends with the relics getting destroyed somehow, and everybody makes up at the end. Or B, the guys decide to donate the relics. For the sake of my story, let's pick option B. The guys donate the relics to a local museum. They get praised by the mayor for their charity and are each awarded $100,000 as a thank you. They're all excited, and they leave their separate ways to spend their earnings. Peter comes home excited to tell Lois the news, but she's waiting for him with a big frown on her face, already expecting Peter to have wasted the money on stupid nonsense. Peter, in a funny, candid moment, corrects her, stating that he's actually been responsible for once, because she was so angry that morning and he felt bad. He paid off his $30,000 of credit card debt and made a huge dent in their mortgage, eliminating most of their problems. After this, he goes to see what the guys did with their money. Joe got a mechanical claw machine arm to move him around the house, and let's just say for the sake of comedy, he tries it out and it drops him multiple times as his limp body awkwardly flops around. They go to Cleveland's house to find that he's replaced the bead door he was using for a back door with a real wooden one, and sent Cleveland Jr. to science camp for the summer. As they make their way to Quagmire's house, they hear yelling. Quagmire's in trouble. Turns out he used his money to upgrade his home automated sex contraptions, but they've gone AWire, tearing away at his house. They grab Quagmire and get out as soon as they can, watching his house crumble and fall in on itself. Distraught, Quagmire's speechless, but the guys have enough leftover earnings to completely pay for repairs, showing that money isn't everything, but it can sure help coming from a friend. For the sake of time, I'm going to keep the B plot extremely short, and I wanted to challenge myself and write a genuinely good Meg story. Meg is roaming the halls of her school and comes to her locker, where she finds a note with a date, a time, and an address on it signed by a secret admirer. She spends all day thinking of who it might be, even coming home extremely excited, telling Brian, Stewie, and Chris, who are sitting in the living room, about it. Genuinely worried about her, they think it might be a prank, so they decide to follow her to the destination just in case something goes wrong. When she arrives at the address, it's a huge rundown warehouse. She opens the door and the lights come on, revealing all of her bullies. There's drinks, balloons, the whole shebang, and across the ceiling is a huge banner that says 1000th. They explain that this is their 1000th prank on Meg, absolutely humiliating her. She runs out crying. Brian and Stewie rush in to see what had happened, while Chris chases after Meg. While Chris tries to calm Meg down, Brian and Stewie have a cool moment where they use Stewie's gadgets to decimate the bullies. Afterwards, they meet Chris and Meg outside. Chris, Brian, and Stewie all tell Meg that she's important to them, and that it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks, because at the end of the day, she still has her family to support her. They all walk off into the sunset, and the episode ends. I wrote this story to prove that even though Family Guy can be extremely formulaic at times, the stories will never truly end until the day that Seth MacFarlane dies. Writers can come and go, times can change, but Family Guy stories will always be there. The idea that a Family Guy story could go in any direction at any time made some of the stories told more engaging and fun. Family Guy has such a loose story structure that it can be enjoyed, modified, and twisted into something anyone can enjoy. This has been proven time and time again by internet meme culture, which as a whole makes content on such an ironic level that it becomes genuinely good in a way. This, coupled with the fact that the show has captivated the hearts and minds of many people, helping them through times of struggle, is why Family Guy frickin' rocks. Thanks to everybody for watching this video. If you liked it and you want to see more, hit the subscribe button, click the bell icon, and like the video. Every little bit of support helps, so it's really appreciated. Thank you, and have a great night.